In this screencast, I'm going to just quickly demonstrate the basics of doing role-to-role communication using worker roles in Windows Azure. And what I've got here is an out-of-the-box vanilla uh, cloud service project with a single worker role that has been just created for me by the wizard. And I'm going to configure this project firstly by adding an end point. This is going to be an endpoint. I'm going to call it role to role. It's going to be an internal endpoint. Let's just save that. And I also am going to bump my instance count up to 3 so that we'll have a number of roles running that can communicate with one another. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new project to this solution, and this is actually going to be a WCF project, and I'll just stay with the default name. This creates a project for me. Now what I want to do here is kind of a trick, I guess, but I actually want to host this web service in my worker role, so I'll drag the implementation down there and delete it from this project. And I'm also going to blow away the app config from the WCF project. And what this is going to now leave me with is a pretty nice clean separation of interface and implementation, so that if I wanted to, I won't do it in this example, but if I wanted to, I could create a client which also referenced this same interface without having to know anything about the implementation, whether it was running on Azure or whatever. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just really simplify this interface. I'm going to only have a single method, and I'm going to just call it say hello. It's going to take a string parameter, and it's going to return a string. So that's kind of a bare bones simplistic interface that we might have, and of course I have to now implement that interface in my implementation file. And of course here I will have to add a reference to the system service model. And because I want to do something with Windows Azure in this implementation, I have to put in a using statement. Windows Azure Service Runtime. Good. Okay. And I also need a reference to the interface project. Great. Okay, so now here in the body of this method, I'm just going to drop in some code that returns Okay, just let me clean this up. I've obviously got the wrong namespace in there. We want the service runtime namespace. Okay, good. So what this is going to do is just return its role instance ID and the time. Okay. Okay, now we can go back to our worker role here, and for the most part we're going to just be able to go ahead and use this, but we need to bring in a couple of namespaces from the system service model and from this interface project. And what we're going to do here is now create some methods to start the service and then to communicate with the other workers. Okay, what we're going to do now is drop in a couple of methods that we've got to start the service and to then communicate with the workers. And we're also going to add a couple of class member variables that are going to hold this information for us. Okay, so in our start service method here, what we're going to do is create the service host and specify that it's implementing this service 1 interface, and we are going to add the endpoint into that service that we've defined in our role configuration. And we start up this thing, we create this thing called a channel factory, which we will use later to actually send the messages to the other worker roles. Okay, in our poke all workers method, all we're doing here is using a little bit of link to retrieve from the collection of role instances all other instances that implement this role-to-role endpoint, and then we can just iterate over those endpoints and send call this say hello method, passing in our current instance ID. The say hello method doesn't actually do anything with that, but it could. Okay, so we're almost done. What we're going to do here is in our run method, we're going to put a call into start the service. And rather than just writing out working here, what we're going to do is call poke all workers. So every 10 seconds, role instance, every instance is going to go out and hit every other instance and ask him to say his name and what time it is. Okay, so I think we can build this. And if we hit run, hopefully it will work. And if we'll, since we're not going to implement a client here, we're going to just take a look at the development fabric user interface. Okay, here are my three instances of worker role 1, and they're starting up. Okay, so here you see in instance 0, we're getting a message from worker role 1 and worker role 2, and then 10 seconds later, more or less, we get another message from worker role 1 and worker role 2. I'm sorry, worker role 1 instance 1 and worker role 1 instance 2. In our instance 1, we're getting messages from instance 0 and instance 2, and in instance 2 we're getting messages from instance 0 and instance ID 1. So it was kind of an oversimplification, and we didn't implement a client here, but hopefully you get the idea of how we can write code that enables these instances of worker roles to communicate with one another directly.